Welcome back! We have just had a very interesting meeting with Gehn, in which he outlined his reasons for why he has apparently changed during his 30-year imprisonment on Riven. But we've seen so much evidence that suggests otherwise that I just can't believe him. But in the meantime, he's given us a present, and that is power to these linking books that take us back to Riven. And normally I'd say that's pretty useless, except for the fact that we can now get to the uncharted 5th island. So let's see what awaits us there. Wow, it certainly seems like we can't see any other islands from this one. Which would make sense considering that we couldn't even see this one from Plateau Island. Well, it's time to see what Gehn has in store for us here. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned yet is this symbol here on the book. Let me explain as soon as I get the dome back into the gold state. There we go, now it's much quieter and we can talk. Now, earlier when I read Gehn's journal, I just said New Age whenever that number came up, because we didn't really exactly know what it was. It looked like a 9 and an 8 smushed together, but the suffix behind those two numbers was RD. Well, that doesn't make sense, because RD would suggest that the last number is 3. Well, let's think about this for a minute, though. In our number system, the Arabic number system, I guess you could say, we have 10 unique numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 0. We use a base 10 number system. So, in other words, when we have a number with multiple digits, let's say 2 digits, we take the leftmost digit, multiplied by 10, and then add the rightmost digit. So, for example, 76, we would take 7 multiplied by 10 and add 6. However, in the Rivenese, or rather the Dunny number system, we've found at least 24 unique numbers, using the logic described earlier when we were on Jungle Island and opened the dome for the first time. What the game doesn't show, at least during this playthrough, is that there's actually a 25th number. We can deduce that just by seeing that the dome has 25 slots for the sliders. So the 25th number is bound to be a number just like every other number, but we wouldn't really know what it is unless we saw it. It's actually a box with an X inside of it. Now, I don't know exactly how the Dunny came up with that, considering that 10, or 5, 10, 15, and 20 are all 1, 2, 3, and 4 respectively, rotated 90 degrees, whereas an X is basically 2 number 1s rotated 45 degrees in either direction. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure if that really has much meaning in relation to the other numbers, but the point is that there's 25 unique numbers. So this means that the Dunny use a base 25 number system. So let's apply that to this situation. We take the first number, 9, we multiply it by 25, and we add 8, 233. Is that how many ages Gehn has really written? Yeesh. Well, let's check our surroundings here. Thankfully, the scope for this island is not hard to find. And it appears to be the home of this giant tree here. Now, Catherine described this tree in her journal, and it appears that it's been cut down, probably for Gehn's bookmaking purposes. It also appears to be the home of a building. Let's investigate. What is this device? Okay, that didn't do anything. Well, it looks like we got some sort of baby's toy type sound making thing here. But it looks like that's probably a combination, and we don't know what it is. And we've got a triangle here. Too bad we can't play it. Okay, it's just a handle. But still, it kind of looks like a triangle. seen this room before. Catherine.
You made it. But how'd you get past Gehn? He must really believe I've gone mad. I know what he's doing. He's watching you. He's waiting for you to make a mistake. He's hoping you'll lead him back to Dunny. You can't let Gehn... Atris sent you to save me. But if Gehn gets back to Dunny, he'll kill him. I think I know how to signal Atris, but it's going to take both of us. You'll have to trap Gehn before you can get the combination. Be careful. Go then. If you won't help me, then I have nothing more to say.
So that's Catherine. What was that all about anyway? Well, let's think about it. She knows that she's being watched. We saw this room in the survey room through that camera. She was walking up to us and whispering because she wanted to be avoided by the camera. And ultimately, her command to go away was just simply a bluff to make Gehn or his guards think that we weren't really trying to free her. But this information, though, is very important. She knows how to signal Atris, but we need to trap Gehn before we can even think about freeing her. And we need to get the combination of this prison, too. So that means we've got one very difficult decision to make here. How to trap Gehn? How are we going to do it? I mean, he wants us to go through the book first, right? But we'll be trapped, right? The thing is, if we don't use it, then Gehn will become more and more suspicious of us. Looks like we've got an impossible situation here. But what if we knew more about how the prison books worked? Well, let's think about this through a minute. 4 minutes, rather. Remember back here in Atris' journal, he talked about this. In this entry. Let me reread it one more time. I think I have the solution. Why it did not occur to me sooner, I do not know, unless the idea of it had been pushed out with the thought of my sons. A prison book. Many years ago, during a hunting expedition through the ruins of Dunny, I chanced upon a formula for a most unusual type of book. Unfortunately, due to the fact that my father was then in the habit of confiscating my discoveries, I was forced to leave it behind. Years later, however, as part of my efforts to protect the vulnerable worlds linked to the books in my library, I was pleased to find that I could still recall most of the formula, and with little experimentation quickly succeeded in creating one of these devices myself. The procedure is actually quite simple. By altering key lines of text but slightly, a normal linking book's connection can be partially severed, such that anyone who attempts to use the book will be permanently trapped in the dark void of the link. That is, unless someone else then uses the book, at which point that person would become trapped, and the first person displaced back into the world. The technique can be applied to books that have already been written, changes to the original text being so slight that anyone who is unfamiliar with the code will be unable to detect them. If indeed my father has not changed, what better bait could there be than a book that appeared to be a link back here to Dunny? Well, this is the entry where Atris first came up with the idea of using a prison book to trap Gehn, and in it he explains how one works. In other words, if someone uses the book, they'll become trapped, but if a second person uses the book, they'll basically trade places with the first one. So this makes things a lot easier. If we were to use the book as Gehn wants us to, and then he follows us through like he says he will, then we'll trade places with him. And there's a bonus to this as well, because not only will he be trapped, but we'll also be able to gain access to everything outside the cage. Which is really what we want in the first place, especially since we were looking for this combination to Catherine's prison. So the way to trap Gehn is to trap ourselves. Who would have thought? Well, back to age 233 we go. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned yet is this bowl-shaped structure that Gehn lives in. Or should I say why it's shaped like a bowl. Well, notice that the age is pretty desolate and harsh. This bowl would certainly be a good way to collect water and filter it through. And from all indications, that appears to be the case. Unless he decided to hike all the way down to the water and do it himself, but if it rained every once in a while, I guess it could work. I like how that thing is glowing. That looks so cool. Well, let's call him up once again.
I'm relieved you've returned. I thought perhaps you had decided against it.
Nope.
Here, I shall follow you directly.
Okie doke. Oh, come on, Gehn. You know you want to. There we go. Yes. And mission accomplished. We have now trapped Gehn in the prison book. So we've got one objective out of 3 completed. Oh, I wish I could see the look on his face now. Well, let's take a look around here. Looks like we got his desk with his inks and everything. And a book here. Aw, I wish we could see what he was working on. Maybe this is that age he was talking about that he's writing for the villagers. Well, any chance to exploit them further, I suppose. Here's this oven device. I'll check out that ladder in a minute, but I just want to explore everything on this floor first. What does this thing do? We haven't seen this yet. Or we haven't seen what it does, rather. Ah, freedom. That's good, because I was concerned that we wouldn't be able to use the Riven books since they seem to be accessible only from inside there, considering that this area here is barred and whatnot. Wait a second, can we go out this door? Aww. I wanted to see the outside. What does this do? It appears to be a music player. I think it sets the mood quite nicely here. What's this place? Well, it looks like we found where Gehn sleeps. Somewhat modest living quarters for a guy who fancies himself to be a god. And what have we here? Another journal. We'll read this in the next video.